So today we're going to answer the age-old question of can poison contain himself and build something small? And the clear answer is no, because this was supposed to be just a peaceful donkey habitat build. It ended up with a tavern and an aqueduct running through it, although the aqueduct was not my fault, it was supposed to be that way. Which I was joking and I was like making big builds just to like solidify that like I can't build small things. But this build, especially this build, was supposed to be a filler build, basically, where I always want to have these filler areas between huge builds where there's not much happening, because if you build too much huge builds, it becomes chaotic, which is usually something I want to avoid in builds at least. But yeah, this was supposed to just be farmlands, and then, well, the aqueduct you can't blame me for. I needed to connect the Norias to the coffee farm with the kangaroos that's like right now is on the right of the screen and the Norias are on the left, so I had to have an aqueduct running between those two, which I kind of forgot when I started building this. The tavern is another story, because it started out as stables and then went into a tavern. Although it could also just be a big house. But anyway, so the idea again for this build was just small farms. You know, show you guys how I build those farms, because I really like to build, like, either I need to build a city or I need to build a farm or fields and such, because those are the only two things that I'm like. Well, and temples and such. Like, I need to either build a city, farmlands, or a temple. Like, those are my strengths, or like the things that I enjoy building the most. One of those two or three things doesn't really belong there. But yeah, when it comes to the farmlands, it's a lot of trilodia grass. I don't think that's the correct name, so if anybody knows the actual name of this piece, it came with the Australia pack. General, like, tip, if you want to build farmlands, use this. It looks very much like grain if you just sink the plant just low enough so that the green bottom part or roots, or not the roots, basically the stems of the plant are basically submerged in the earth, or just, you know, that you can't see the green part. And then, yes, it's not actually grain, but it really looks a lot like grain fields then. I also just legitimately put some African roofs in the grain fields as like, I just like it as a visual element. I don't think it's realistic, but it just looks nice. And then also, well, if you want to build a modern farm, you can build those huge ass fields, but because Kayan al-Bashar is kind of set in like a Renaissance medieval area, or era, not area, but era, I always like to have that like patchwork of very small fields sometimes. Like some larger fields, but most of the time they are like the size of a Poisonblade house or Poisonblade house builds. I just like to have this like patchwork of fields because it just gives so much diversity to the place. Like, you can add so many different plants. Here is where the aqueduct comes in. And again, I first tried it with the smaller aqueduct, but it just didn't look right because I wanted kind of universal, or not universal. Poison blades can't really talk. But I just want to have like one visual style for the aqueducts, and the smaller ones are only for like really delivering the water from the larger aqueducts directly into the fields. This one, yeah, I like big aqueducts. I like them a lot more than the smaller ones that I've made, and so I replaced the smaller aqueduct with the larger one. Again, I can't build small builds. If I see something small, it's just like, this could be bigger. That's what she said, I think. Nah, maybe. But anyway, so by this point, well, when it comes to the entirety of Kayan al-Bashar, I can actually now, thanks to mods, use a lot more animals in my builds. Because I can now have cows, I can have chickens, I can also have pigs. I also found a mod that would give me corgis. I think Leaf made it. I think Leaf also made this donkey mod, but I'm not sure. I will, of course, like with any other mods that I use when it comes to modded animals in any of my builds, I will link the maker or creator of the mod in the description as always. I just have the memory of a goldfish, so yeah, that's also a thing that this is just embarrassing for me, but sometimes you guys reference like a point in the video in your comments and then I'm just like, wait, did I say that? Like, again, I have the memory of a goldfish, so a lot of the times I don't really remember what I say in my voiceover. And so then it's just like, yeah, it's this. And then I'm just like, did I actually say that? When did I say that? What are you talking about? Yeah, in a way, I don't remember my own videos. But then the voiceovers are pure chaos, so it's kind of... But anyway, to go back to the actual build, so you quickly saw me like sort of making the layout of what was going to be just a stable. Yeah, it got bigger. Which isn't surprising to anyone. Like I said, like, oh, we're going to answer the age-old question of Poison. Can he make a small build? And like, even before that question, like, you guys probably already know, no, I can't build small builds. I need to make them larger because compensating. No, not that. But oh, this video is so many layers of cursed. But yeah, I just wanted to build more of those like Ethiopian style buildings that I used previously. I did use one of the ones that I built previously in this build. That's why I didn't show you. I mean, also the aqueduct I didn't build in this video. I just used what I had already built because ain't nobody got time to build another aqueduct when he already has a perfectly working one that he can just use. So yeah, I legitimately today only built the fields and the tavern. Although again, it could just be a large house. But then I just think that because it has stables and such, it's probably something close to a tavern. Also, Squirrel's Tavern, the huge ass build that had to be imported into Kayan al-Bashar via 3 separate blueprints. Or actually 4, I think. Like the domes were separate blueprints, the towers were one. Half of the actual building was a blueprint and then the other half was another blueprint. So I think the Squirrel's Tavern was 4 blueprints. But yeah, that place is not correctly named. Like, it's supposed to probably be Squirrel's Inn. Because a tavern is supposed to be, if I read the definition correctly, a place where you basically can only like drink. It's basically a bar, a little bit like that. And an inn is supposed to be a place where you can also sleep, where you can have lodgings and such. And yeah, Squirrel's Tavern, I think you can sleep there, so that would mean that it's Squirrel's Inn. And then I was thinking, why did I name it Squirrel's Tavern? Because it's not like this is any new information to me. But then I realized, oh, it's because Squirrel's Tavern looks way nicer on the sign than Squirrel's Inn. Yeah, sometimes I make decisions just based on how they look and not if they are correct. So this one could be a tavern because it's smaller. There's probably no space here to sleep or have lodgings or anything of that. But yeah, this was also supposed to be much smaller. You can already see that like I started out with the layout and then the layout got larger, larger and larger. And even larger because, of course, I had to move the entirety of the aqueduct just because this tavern got out of hand. Also, this is a tangent, but then that's basically what I'm known for by now. This donkey is called a Somali wild ass, if I'm correct. Again, I have the memory of a goldfish, so especially names and dates and numbers, like just anything that can't be visual or basically anything that's text, I will forget. If it's called a Somali wild ass, that's the perfect name. And also for the cinematic shots, because this place, it's just painfully peaceful and cute. There's no murder or anything of that nature in today's build, which is strange. I did want to basically build a little bit of a graveyard, like just a... Of course I did. It's me. Of course I want to build something involving that. But in the end I just decided against it because it's just this tiny little nook in the field or the Elysian fields of Kayan al-Bashar. And it was just like, hey, let's try and build something peaceful and cute instead of murdery and sexual. Yeah, I'm still like debating how I'm going to do the Aphrodite build. But then I have recently come to the conclusion that whenever I am faced with big, huge builds, I kind of want to put them off because too much pressure. Like I've been sort of hinting towards renovating the Hagia Sophia build or the interior of it, and I've just been like, I will do that later. So fun, but also I should get to it. But now I'm just happy building my farms and such. Also, this is probably... there might be 3 big builds after this. And then the 3rd season of Kayan al-Bashar is finished. Then Kayan al-Bashar will go behind the scenes again, and while I fix some of the small things that weren't big enough to make it into a video, like especially bridges. Like building bridges has just always been an issue to me because I just never find the inspiration for it. So yeah, there's basically maybe 3, maybe 4 more videos before we're going to say goodbye to Kayan al-Bashar for, let's say, a month or so. And then we're going into the final season of Kayan al-Bashar, which is terrifying to me. That like Kayan al-Bashar just never felt like it would be finished, but now we're going into the final season, and I hope it's not like the final season of Game of Thrones, because curse you for that final season of Game of Thrones. Actually, I think for me, like the interest in Game of Thrones just dropped as soon as Oberyn Martell died. Because after that, the Martell plot, and spoilers for Game of Thrones, but I think everybody wants to forget Game of Thrones, at least the later seasons, but I just hate how they did the Tyrells, the Martells, Daenerys, basically anyone besides Sansa got like a very weird ending, and just, yeah, like only Sansa got kind of a satisfying end that made sense. All of the others were just like, how much shock value can we put into a season, which, yes, shock value can be fun, but if it's good writing, if everybody's just like, why did you do that? That just doesn't make any sense, then it's probably not the best writing, and it's just, again, shock value for shock, not because it actually does anything. And also just, when it comes to Game of Thrones, I don't think it surprises anyone that I like the scenes where there's like the political intrigue and such, and in my opinion, like, we got less and less of that with like just the talking, basically. From like the first few seasons, there was a lot of that, and then the later season, it was just nudity, sex scenes, battle scenes, and then it was just like, yeah, and what made Game of Thrones fun for me? Nothing of what's in the later seasons. Anyway, I should move on, because I'm probably going to devote a whole video to just ranting on these last seasons of Game of Thrones, because I loved that series, and now I've started reading the books, which is kind of daunting because they are door stoppers, like they are big. But anyway, I should probably talk a little bit more about the actual build and stop ranting about Game of Thrones, because I will just go into a vicious, endless loop when I start talking about Game of Thrones. But anyway, when it comes to the Somali wild-ass donkey build / tavern / aqueducts, it got larger. That's just the entire thing of today's video. Like, I just kept adding things to it because I just wanted to see how far I could push myself. Like, by now, when it comes to builds, I want to challenge myself, because otherwise, like, well, when it comes to, let's say, the city houses that I used to build on video as well, but now I stopped building them on video because they have become kind of easy for me to build, so for me it's not as interesting, though I might show you guys some of them later on. But yeah, I just need to feel challenged when it comes to my builds, which is also a perfect way to keep getting better at builds, to not just like sort of flatline or plateau, but just keep trying new things. And yes, the Hagia Sophia dome, like the interior, still haunts me because I think I spent an entire day just trying to figure out how to make the interior work with the pieces that we have in Plan 2. And so I'm very happy when I don't have to build an interior, which is basically all of Kayan al-Bashar. I did initially think to make a little bit of an interior for this build, but then it was just like, Poison, no. You've already made it way too large. Don't make it basically painful by trying to make an interior for this place. So I ended up not doing that, and I am very happy. I also tried to, with this build, or with this tavern, big house, don't know what it is exactly, it's just big, basically. But I also wanted to just have it be, well, it's a big house, so it's probably going to be either a well-off farmer. I still think it's probably a tavern because I think it's too large for like a farm house. But I wanted it to be kind of like, oh, you have the living areas, which are really nice with like the carved wood, and then you have the actual like farm bits, like the stables and such, which are not as pretty because that's not the living area. So there you don't have the carved wood and such, so that you could basically really easily see, oh, this is where the people live. This is like, oh, this is their living room, or this is where their bedrooms and such are. And then this is like, that's a stable, and that's probably the area where they store all the produce and such, or all the tools and everything. So you can easily see that just by the beams, because the more rough looking beams with the ropes holding them together is definitely the area where all the tools and such are kept. Again, I think this is a tavern, but it still could just be a big house because I didn't really put it out as like, oh, tavern. It just became that way. This video also doesn't make any sense. I went from this build was supposed to be small to don't blame me for the aqueduct to again going into the tavern thing, then to Game of Thrones, then to, well, before that, Donkey. Now we're finishing off, I would say. I'm just doing the final touches when it comes to the fields surrounding the... Yeah, I'm just going to say it's a tavern. It's a tavern. Also, yeah, this just solidifies that I can't build small builds. I want to actually challenge myself now by having a small, but that sounded wrong. I'm not going to finish that sentence, but I want to challenge myself by trying to build something small. Like, I can't build anything large, but I still need to get the vibe correctly. Also, I am actually thinking of making not so much tutorial videos, but tips on like how I build, because I've noticed that like I'm bad at making tutorials. I'm bad at teaching you guys stuff. I'm bad at doing any of that. But I have noticed that like throughout my videos I sometimes give tips, and it would probably be good if I just make one video trying to basically put them all together. Not so much in how to build, but more on like how to build a certain vibe, how to give like character to a place, because I think that I'm good at that, but hey, maybe you guys think that I'm awful at that. I mean, I'm awful at building small builds, so let's start with that one. But anyway, that's it for today's video. This video didn't make any kind of sense. I went on a million different tangents, so standard Poisonblade video it seems. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you enjoyed the donkeys, because I really enjoyed them. And then also, yeah, I should make this intro make more sense, but I don't. So if you liked the video, there is the like and subscribe button. If you want to see more, there's a notification button. But before that one starts working, I will say that the final seasons of Game of Thrones were good. So no. Anyway, have a wonderful day guys, and bye bye.